Hello, so this is day 11 of 14 new creative days. I've changed things around a bit here. I'm going to do another pastel demonstration of an interior, and I'm going to do what you're seeing behind me here. I'm out in the hallway and I'm going to be drawing the view through the door. So there's lots going on in the house today. We've got Tchaikovsky's Fifth in the background and people coming and going. The buzzer will go any second now. But let's focus on the drawing. So I've opened the door to the sitting room. I'm out in the hallway and I'm going to work as usual with a bit of charcoal. So the thing often to deal with at the beginning is trying to get this big doorway, this whole view into a room, onto a small page. And it's great to work with a scene where you're looking through a doorway or looking through a window. The door or the window will frame or create a frame within your picture. But the challenge at the beginning is to try and get it all on the page because it's a small page. So I'm starting with the charcoal, and I think that's where I'm going to have the door. And I would like the top of the door sloping down slightly, bit of perspective here. And I'd like the base of the door. So that's the size that the door is going to be, but I still don't know if that's the right size, so I'm not going to press too hard yet. But I think if the top of the door slopes down, then I can hold up my bit of charcoal and just get a rough idea. At that point, the middle of the door goes in that direction, and then the base must come up more sharply. I like the shadow that the door is casting. So that's what I'm going to stick with. But having established the door there and the door jamb here, that doesn't leave a lot of room for what's inside the room. So I've really got to scale that down. So I think we've got Kitty Jones's picture there. We've got a mantelpiece here. And then top of the mantelpiece, and we're still only at the door handle there. So you see, by working with the side of the charcoal, sliding it around, and not making anything too permanent, it's possible for me to gradually find the right scale. And what I need to expect is that things are much smaller than I thought they were. So I've got to be ready to scale them down. So I think that's where the fireplace is. And we've got a chair over here. But I've already decided that what I really like is not only the doorway framing my subject, but the fact that the door casts a shadow. So it matters to me to get down to that bit of the door there. Maybe the carpet's a bit small, but I think that's okay. I can get away with that. So I think I've got a rough idea now of where everything's going to be. So this is going to be a pastel demonstration, but I'm using the usual approach that I've been showing you with other drawings. It's really Degas' approach, and that is putting down some charcoal darks first. And the other thing I quite like about the scene is Jenny Martin's picture is over here, which I think you can see better than me. But I'm just going to move it over. There's really lovely light on its silver frame. So I want to include that as well. So that's the first stage in this whole process. And it's really just to do with trying to get the proportion of the different elements of my interior. And when you work on a small bit of paper, as I'm doing, it's a challenge, but it's something really worth doing, because if you can compress your subject in this way, then you're much more in control of the whole drawing. Oh, there goes a person. Yeah, just run past and then you're just... No, I'm only joking. No, go back.
No, I want to go
Just
that
go
way.
back.
I was trying not to get in the way of your video.
Oh, no, you're not in the way now. Yeah, you're in twice. Well done. So there is a first stage, and I think I'm going to spray that now and pause the video so I don't take too much of your time not progressing. But I hope that's fairly clear that I've got in my main shapes, and my whole interest is in framing this scene with the top and the bottom of the door and using the doorway to create a frame within the picture. So very often you produce a picture, you don't know, what is it about your subject that interests you, that you want to show people. Sometimes having a frame, like a window frame or a door frame within the picture, really draws people's attention to whatever it is that interests you. So that's how you can show something to someone in the way that you compose your drawing. So I'm going to pause now while I go and spray this, because I think I've got almost enough charcoal down for now. I'm going to be applying colour, blocks of colour, but I'm also going to mix the charcoal in with it. So it's okay if I haven't done all the charcoal I want to do yet, because I'll go on building it up. And there's just something I haven't understood about that chair. I think the chair's too big, but I'll put it there for now. Right, so let's pause that. So I've sprayed my drawing with some fixative. So that charcoal is now sealed in, won't smudge. And the next thing I have to do now is start blocking in some areas of colour. So we've got this kind of pinky purple carpet, and I'm just using the side of the pastel stick to get a little bit of colour on to the main areas. That's the carpet. We've got a pale yellow creamy wall. There are objects on the mantelpiece that I'm just ignoring for now. That thing of looking with your eyes half closed is always useful, because then you don't see so much, and it kind of edits out things that aren't so important. The door, I've got a brown here which is maybe a little bit too dark, so I'll put that on first, and a bit on the door jamb, and then I have a lighter orangey yellow that I'll mix in. So I'm blocking in. I'm also, you can see, just trying out colours. I've got the charcoal underdrawing, which is showing through, so that's a bit of a guide, but I'm doing this very loosely because I'll probably change my mind as things develop, and I think that's a perfectly good way to work. You keep things loose, then if they're not in proportion, then you can change them without too much anxiety. I'm just looking for a grey for the fireplace here. So this is much like, I'm using colour very much in the same way that I was using the charcoal. I'm working very generally. Nothing is too definite yet. It's a slightly stronger colour, quite like that. And at any point I can also go back to the charcoal. There's a little bit of colour in Kitty's picture up there, might do that. And a bit in the chair. So I've got the guide of the charcoal drawing, but as I start to get more into defining things, then I probably discover that I want to change some of that charcoal drawing. That isn't what I expected it would be. So what's that? It's really light. Okay, well that's probably quite good for the door. But also you'll see that I'm working around the drawing. I'm not spending too long on any area in particular yet. And this at this point now, I think I'll go back to some more charcoal. I'll get in the fireplace and the mantelpiece. So that always helps. If you're getting a little bit lost, put in some of the dark shapes. And I'm remembering as well, my theme, the whole point of this drawing really is to get this view through the door. So because the door is opened into a light room, if I get a bit more dark into the frame of the door, then that will reinforce the effect that I'm after. And maybe I'll get a little bit of colour onto the shadow that the door is casting. So that would be maybe a different sort of pinky purple. Not sure whether that's quite the one. A nice colour, a little bit strong, but never mind. So that's the main areas. There's a nice bit of colour outside the room with what's halfway down the wall. So I want that, and I also want a bit of light on Jenny's picture frame. I don't know if the white is too much. Might be all right. So again, I'm just trying to get this balance between what's inside the room and what's outside the room. Finding the colours that I can replace some of the charcoal with, so that I keep the contrast, the light inside the room, the dark areas outside the room, but replacing charcoal grey and black with some of these other colours. So that's not too bad for the door. We've got some perspective here, so the bottom of the door goes at that angle. The middle of the door, which is a bit lower than the middle, is gradually getting closer to, well, it's less angled, it's a bit closer to the horizontal, and then the top of the door actually is sloping right down. So that helps open the door. So now I need to do more in here. We get a little bit more onto the fireplace with some grey. There's loads of stuff in the fireplace and the mantelpiece. More than I can manage. Pictures and objects. Maybe I'll put something on the mantelpiece. A bit of colour on the picture frame there as well. That might be quite good. But again, it's time to be more selective. I'm going to leave things out so that the drawing isn't too complicated. We've got these orange Swedish horses. A bit of colour there. I've already said looking with your eyes half closed is a good way of simplifying things. Maybe get a bit of white now into this mantelpiece as well. Let the top of it stand out a bit. So I've done a lot with the side of the chart, with the side of the pastel blocking in. Now I'm using the tip of the pastel. I can get more on and I can make more definite marks. So as I gradually begin to bring things out, that's a useful approach. Now there's a tiny bit of colour in the tiles around the fireplace, a bit of blue. So I've put a light amount on the side of the pastel, but I'm smudging it because I don't want that to be too strong. And it's time probably to make that, we've got a stove in this fireplace, which is here. I think it's probably time to make that stove a bit more definite. There's some black and also with a different grey. So what I hope I'm demonstrating to you, and I probably can't do much more at this stage, I'll probably stop the filming and do a little bit more later. What I'm trying to demonstrate to you then is having constructed this composition, worked with the charcoal to produce a kind of tonal underdrawing that I was able to move around and get the scale and the perspective that suited my subject. I then fixed it with fixative, and then started to apply colour, blocks of colour, working fairly generally. And now what I'm doing, this is the later stage, I'm choosing things now to define, and that's really important. That's the kind of artistic imperative. We don't define everything. We choose the things that we want people to see and draw attention to, and we give them more attention. We make them more definite. We use colour and so on. So that's probably as far as I'm going to go with this bit of filming. I'll pause it and see if I add a bit on, or whether I just show you on the email a finished piece of work.